Welcome to the Impact Recovery channel. My name is Sarah Pritchard, and today we are doing things a little differently. We are starting a mini series on a few steps for families on how to help them navigate having a loved one in active addiction or even in recovery. So today we have Miss Kathleen with us. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks again for having me on.
Yes.
And what we're going to talk about is we're going to go through the steps,
Yeah.
right? But we're going to start today with step one.
Yes.
And so we talk about the Paths to Recovery book, that every family member gets information about ordering this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also talk about the blueprint for progress.
Yes.
So today, let's just deep dive into step one. Okay?
Yep.
So let me get my glasses on.
Yes. And for a little context, families that are a part of our Impactful Family program get to go through these and experience this themselves. And your idea, which I think is an amazing idea, is to be able to have this for families that maybe want to go back through and get more information, or families that are potentially looking at coming to our program, or even just families that, like I said, have a loved one in active addiction or even recovery and they're sober now. This can be tools really for anybody.
Absolutely. And also to clarify, so we have 4 meetings a week presently for families. They can attend one or all. We have 2 that are topic meetings, and then we have 2 others that are specifically step meetings, and we go through the steps, right? Those are interactive, whereas this is just going to be, I'm just going to go through as if I'm teaching it.
Mm-hmm.
And then people might come up with questions that they could ask, whether it's to their own sponsor at home or, join a meeting if they're a part of Impact Family. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
And we encourage you, if you do have questions, feel free to put it in the comment box below and we'll answer those too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Great. Okay. So step one, and I want to explain also that the steps are exactly the same as the AA steps.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we work them differently.
Mm-hmm.
I explained to families from day one, we are working on our side of the street, right? You guys work on your side of the street, doing your work, and it's a lot, right, to be able to go through all that. But we have the same work to do
Mm-hmm.
so that we can be prepared to support you on your journey, right? All right, so step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Some of us come to find out how to get another person sober. We think that we can do that, right? And so surely we'll just come to this meeting and you'll have all the answers, Kathleen, right? And others grew up in alcoholic families or left alcoholic partners and no longer live with that. Though we may have not labeled it this way, we come to Al-Anon because our lives had become unmanageable. And usually when I explain this piece of unmanageability, a lot of members will say, but I'm not an addict. I'm not an alcoholic. I didn't lose all this money. I didn't get arrested. I didn't have these things. I don't have these health problems. And I'll say, well, unmanageability on our side of the street looks a little different. And how it looks different is this. Have you ever worried about them? Not just 5 minutes, but have you ever stayed up all night worrying about them? Have you ever not been able to stop thinking about, oh my gosh, like I just gave them $100. Like, what did they do with the $100? Right. And so that's how we get unmanageable, right? Or if we feel like we're just putting all of our life aside to be able to make sure they stay alive.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying stop doing that. We want them to stay alive. But on the other hand, what can it look like so that's healthy and healthy boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are not alone. We too are lonely and frustrated, right? In Al-Anon, we discover that no situation is really hopeless and that it's possible for us to find contentment and even happiness, whether the alcoholic or addict is still drinking or not.
That's key.
That's key. And what's key to it is this is, again, our side of the street, the part that I have the ability to make an impact or a change in, right? And so I'm just show you a little bit. My book is highlighted, underlined. So what I do when I teach the group is I go through my highlighted pieces and then I ask family members, hey, was there anything else that popped out at you, right? So I'm just kind of reading from that part, not the whole book. Once we acknowledge that someone else's drinking has affected our lives, we may want to blame everything on the drinking. We're sure there must have been something more we could have done to say or do that would stop the alcoholic or the addict from using, thus resolving our problems. We have no idea, and this is underlined, highlighted, that we are as powerless over alcohol and drugs as the alcoholic or addict is. Because they seem to be the ones that are out of control. So we must be the ones in control. We must be the ones to be able to just have this power over it, right? And we continue to try this craziness.
Right.
Just like you are on your side of the street, trying everything you possibly can to stop. Well, I'm going to taper. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When it's a disease, that's not going to work.
Right.
And then the next part, not understanding that alcoholism is a disease. Many of us have tried to take things into our own hands.
Yeah.
This is also where we talk about the fact that alcohol or drugs were not the problem. They were the solution, right? And they're like, what do you mean by that? It didn't look like a solution. Well, to the alcoholic or the addict with the disease, it relieved that internal state of restless, irritable, and discontent. So we share about that, talk about that a little bit and explore it. We also talk about it being, again, first we must understand and accept that alcoholism is a disease. One symptom is an uncontrollable desire to drink or use. As long as an alcoholic or an addict continues, that desire will increase. The only way to arrest the disease is total abstinence.
Yes.
Right. And we talk about that a lot and explaining that because it's hard for someone to understand that can have a drink of alcohol, have a glass of wine, or, even do drugs and stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, I can do it, or my brother stopped, or this happened, or that happened, or my friend's husband stopped, but it's not working for their family member.
Right. Right. And I think that's hard, especially for families that drink and party and have fun, which nothing's wrong with that. But they're just just don't drink as much, just don't do as much and you'll be fine. Just have a couple.
Right.
I've heard, especially dads, I feel are just they just need to cut back,
Right. Well, sometimes it is dads, sometimes it is moms, sometimes it's siblings,
yes.
Sometimes it's spouses, but it's usually because those people are able to do that.
Right. Exactly.
And they just can't wrap their brain around it. And that's what I tell them. I said, look, I've been doing this a long time. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I thought I got it. I thought I understood it until I went and worked with this. It's like looking through this little lens here now at a small group, a small population, because people that come to Impact are qualified. They are alcoholics or addicts. Other people might struggle, but it's because they drank too much or they used too much and it got in the way of their life, right? But they weren't necessarily someone with the disease. Not everyone that drinks too much or uses too much has a disease. And that's the part that's scary for people, right? Because I'm telling them that their family member has a disease.
Yeah.
And I always say, okay, just wait because the hope will come, right? Let me just get through this part. We've got to understand it, right?
Yes.
And I have so many people that when they get the part about the disease, they're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Right. And I always say, look, I'm going to give this disclaimer. I don't care how many times you've heard it. It does not excuse their behavior. We'll get to that part later in step 4.
Right.
When we do our inventory. Okay. One of the things we also talk about is that alcoholism, addiction, this disease is a 3-part problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a physical problem. It's, a mind problem. So it's physical, mind, and then so body, mind, and then spirit. And so when we talk about the body, this is the part where they talk about right here, right, is total abstinence. Having any substance, mind-altering substance in the body will activate what we call the allergy, right? So understanding that piece of the disease, that if I drink, it doesn't activate an allergy. Yes, I could get, a little silly or a little different. It could alter my mind, but it doesn't activate something in my body and my mind, right? Whereas an alcoholic or an addict, it does. That's the disease.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right. And the allergy, the way a normal allergy breaks out is hives or you're itching or your throat closes up if you eat peanut butter or strawberries or something like that. The way the allergy shows up for me and breaks out for me when I drink alcohol is I need more.
You need more.
And there's no control. And it's this phenomenon of craving that kicks in. And it's just, I need more until that craving is satisfied, which could be 2 hours, 2 days, 2 years. I don't know. There's no control.
And it makes no sense.
Right.
Right. Like, when are they going to stop?
Yeah.
We don't, we don't know. That's how the disease is, right? And every person is different and every situation is different.
Yes.
So the other part that, like, you're talking about how the allergy reacts and responds in an alcoholic or an addict, someone with the disease, is it creates part of the phenomenon of craving is not just the physical need for this substance, the body feels the physical need, it's the mind can't stop thinking about it. I remember the first time I really understood that was, I'm like, well, how often are you using? Well, and they'd tell me, and I'm like, okay, so what about the time when you're not using? I'm thinking about it. I'm either thinking about using or thinking about where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. Or so 24/7, when that allergy is activated, that's where the body and the mind is.
Yeah.
And so then the third part of the problem is the spiritual piece, the disconnect that they have from other human beings, from, the world around them, their spiritual connection or lack of connection. Key to this 3-part problem needs a 3-part solution.
Right.
And so what we can recognize and acknowledge is that we might not have the physical piece. We might not have that allergy. But very often we have the mind and the spirit. So the mind can't stop worrying. Mind can't stop thinking, well, I should do this. I should do that. They should do this. They should do that. And then the spirit part gets in the way too, or gets blocked because we feel like God or our higher power doesn't listen when we're begging and asking for them to help us. Right. It's a very scary, dark place to be. And so when we talk about this, we also talk about this statement in here is sometimes controversial in group. Alcoholism is a family disease. And everyone's like, well, wait a minute. I'm not drinking. I'm not. And maybe they're not. Right. And I said, well, that's not what it means. What it means is that when someone, if someone has cancer or someone has another medical disease, it affects people, but it doesn't affect people the way alcoholism or addiction does. There's a lot of secrecy, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration that goes along with this. And it becomes part of this whole family dynamic, right? And very often with people that struggle with the disease of addiction or alcoholism is that they, in an attempt to get their needs met, the survival mechanism, they will go to one person versus another or back and forth.
Yes.
And it creates a lot of chaos in the family, right? And so when we talk about it, we say, the disease is also a disease of relationships. Many of the symptoms of alcoholism are in the behavior of the alcoholic, right? They try to control it, make up for it, or hide it. They often blame themselves and they're hurt by it. This is for the family, the people around it, right? In Al-Anon, we hear our powerlessness over alcoholism described as this is the 3 C's, right? We didn't cause it, we can't cure it, and we can't control it. And we go back to page 8 all the time. And I say, when someone will say something or bring something up in group, I'm like, let's go back to page 8. On the bottom, the 3 C's. It depends on the relationship, but obviously in families, parents blame themselves. Well, did we miss something? Maybe we shouldn't have taken them to this doctor at this age. Is that what did it? Or, we'll have conversations in group about, well, so you mean they're born with it? And we talk about the genetic component of the disease. We also talk about the fact, and I think this is another thing we need to say, is that, there are people, like if I went and had to have major surgery and got on pain medication and took it for a long enough period of time, I would have a physical dependency to it. I'm not an addict.
Right.
So I would still probably need support coming off of it.
Yes.
And that's where some controversial things come in, what medications might help me come off of that. But that won't work for an addict or an alcoholic. In fact, many of them have tried it and it only created more of a problem.
Yes.
Right. Because part of that is their families and them thought, now what's wrong with them? Why isn't it working for them?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and like I have a friend whose dad had back surgery and he had to get off of the medication. It was hard. Like he had to detox off of it.
Yes.
And the difference between an addict and him is once he was off of it and detox, he's like, oh, I don't want to get back on those things. Like that's awful. Where an addict's like, oh my gosh, how do I get back on that? How do I
find something else?
Yes.
That's going to help me not have this internal state of restless, irritable, and discontent.
Right, because it fixed that. It made me feel better.
Right. It was a solution.
Yeah.
And that I really try to share that a lot in here because it's, if they can understand that, and I find most families have oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the first, or sometimes it's a little bit longer in. So again, we were trying to fix a disease, and someone else's disease at that, right? To find peace and serenity in our lives, we have to change a challenging and perhaps fearful thought. We have to change our side of the street, right? And I write that on there. What side of the street am I on? And I bring that up a lot. We may have to relearn how to take care of ourselves. When we're focused on another person's alcoholism and behavior, many of us develop the habit of putting that person's needs first. Admitting our powerlessness may be very difficult for us. After all, we are the competent ones, right? We held everything together. Like, how could we even imagine that we are powerless? How can it be? In Al-Anon, we come to understand that our lives may become unmanageable because we're trying to control the people and situations in our lives, not our own life, not how we react and respond, but we're trying to control those things. And, I've had many families say, Kathleen, if we didn't do that, they'd probably be dead. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you're right. So this is where it's important to have a group to talk about it, right? Like, what do we do now? Have a group of people. And so we're not divided, but we're together as a unit, right? And continue to do everything we can to help you guys on your journey. Chad always says, do everything for their recovery and nothing for the disease.
I was just about to say that.
Yes. I say that to the families a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're like, what exactly does that mean? I said, well, here it is. Just like the disease is complicated, every situation's complicated. So early in recovery, the boundary might be not to give them money, but to provide it to someone in the program, that can then say, okay, here's a gift card and this is what you can do, but we'll hold on to these other ones, right? So it's using that. But as they move forward in their recovery, and what's so hard about this is that they're adults. But unfortunately, this disease creates just a real adolescent or toddler type of behavior.
Yeah.
And so you want to treat them with the respect of an adult, but at the same time, utilize resources around you, that people that know, that have had this experience. I don't tell them what to do. I basically say, you need to talk to Chad, or, you need to talk to Jacob. Right. And talk to them about what would be best in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We have to admit that nothing we do or don't do can control another person's drinking or using. We learn to accept the things we cannot change, the alcoholic, and to change the things we can, ourselves, on our side of the street. For us to recover, we have to learn to keep focus on ourselves, right? By letting go of the illusion of control over other people, their actions, and their addictions, we find an enormous burden is lifted, and we begin to discover the freedom and the power we do possess, the power to define and live our own lives. Unmanageability lessens. We begin to see the paths to our own recovery. Step 1 reminds us of our proper relationship with others. We are powerless over them. It places us in correct relationships with ourselves. When we try to control others, we lose the ability to manage our own lives, the unmanageability. Step 1 is the true beginning of our path to recovery, right? And so in our book, the first part of the chapter is really understanding the actual step. The second part is people share their stories, right? So I'm not going to get too deep into those, but at the very end of the chapter, it's very nicely done. That there's all these questions, like there are 23 questions in this one. I'm going to say a couple more things that really popped out at me. One is, by process of elimination, I discovered what I am not powerless over, myself. I am responsible for me. I am not responsible for another person's happiness, nor are they responsible for mine. I know that no one else can control my emotions. No one can make me angry, sad, happy, or anything else without me giving them permission to do so. My feelings are my own.
That's powerful.
It's so powerful. Like underline, you see it. Like it's highlighted, underlined. Right. I say that. So I think the piece for me that I found very interesting about doing this work with the families was that first I needed to do the work, right? And then do the work alongside them. And every single time I facilitate step 1, and I've done it quite a few times now, I'm like, oh, wow, I needed to hear that today.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And many, many times as we're going through the steps, I'll say, let's go back to step 1.
Yeah.
And we know that. It's the same with you guys, I'm
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Right?
Yes. If someone's like not wanting to write inventory or make amends, it's not a step 9 or 4. It's a step 1 problem. Like,
Yeah.
do you truly believe you're powerless? Like, do you believe this is a disease? This is bigger than you, that you got no shot? If you don't, we got to go back to step 1 to show you that you have no shot.
Right. We've got to start all over again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we have to start all over again.
Right.
We just, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to run the show again.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the part I want to mention quick is that in the back with the questions, one of the things I also found was, I would read through the questions. I'd be like, oh, well, I don't need to answer that one. Right. Like that doesn't seem to apply to me. And I would skip them. I was literally doing that. Right. And then I was teaching it. And I said to someone, oh, goodness, I noticed I didn't answer that question. We kind of laughed a little bit. I said, the truth of the matter is, for an alcoholic or an addict, they need to answer every question because it's a matter of life or death for them. For us, it's just a matter of how we live our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you might find is that give yourself grace, go through it. If you skip a question, fine, but be willing to go back and take a look at it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that's step 1.
That's step 1. All
Yeah.
right. And like we said earlier, if you have questions, please put them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you. So thank you.